Sketch made this.
Hey everybody, Sketch back with more Tier in the X-Files, and before we get started, besides apologies for the long delay, again, a quick shout out to Darth Sidious, who is a long-time commenter and supporter of the channel, but besides technically winning the secret competition that I was running last time by clicking and commenting on the second part of season 2 before the link was available publicly, they clicked on the link in the description. Darth Sidious, congratulations. I haven't said anything until now because it got occurred to me that the prize was going to be an X-Files goodie, and it's occurred to me that you probably have everything. But if you still want your prize, then let me know. But Darth Sidious took me to task last time on my kind of beatdown of Darin Morgan. And I agree completely. It is definitely an episode I enjoy. I was kind of hard on it unnecessarily. I stand by my opinions about its issues. I also stand by, though, my thoughts on directorially. I thought it was way stronger than necessarily the writing. But yeah, I was a little harsh on it, and I will acknowledge that. But it's comments like that and other people that commented, and I apologise, I did not check names before starting recording. This is like my second time recording this video, so I'm a little lazy with it, if I'm honest, at the moment. It's comments like those and stuff like that that I really love seeing, especially, you know, I don't always agree with them, but it's always fascinating. I love seeing other people's views on the stuff. So yeah, massive shout out and massive thanks. Unfortunately, things have been rough with my eyes lately, so typing has not been a thing I can do. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out and apologise for people that thought I was a bit rough on that episode. But today we are finally up to season 3, and yeah, if you thought I was mean to Darin Morgan, yeah, you're not gonna like this one. Please hold on to your pitchforks. I gotta say it, I'm not a big fan of this season. This turns up on a lot of best of season lists. And it was essentially the height of the show. This is why so many things that were produced, like say the trivia game or the actual game, you know, FMV game and stuff like that. They're all done around that seasons 1 to 3 mark. Even the more recent board game was focused on those seasons, because a lot of people consider this the absolute pinnacle of the show. And I absolutely disagree. Now, the point I should make is it's not about the episodes. If you just take these individual episodes and take them as they are, these are some of the best episodes that the show ever produced. However, this is not a good binging season, just for me personally. It is tonally all over the place. If I'm going to point somebody to a season to introduce them to the series, I would say season 1, season 2. Season 2 definitely. But this season, like I say, if you're taking individual episodes, then definitely show somebody, a newbie, those. But as a whole, we are talking 7 Mytharc episodes that are actually surprisingly connected, a little repetitive, and I easily get mixed up with a few of these. So yeah, look forward to that in the editing. But there are 7 Mytharc episodes. There are 5 light-hearted comedic episodes, and some filler here that just doesn't hit where it should. So just tonally, watching these episodes back to back, I just found it a bit of a slog. So it's just never, this and season 5, when I think about the series, they are like down low on my favourite season lists. I have to then be reminded of what episodes are in the season to go, oh yeah, I like that one, I do like that one. So, yeah. I'm just putting that out front. As we get to the episodes, obviously, I'll then rate them. But I'm just saying, when I think of it as a whole, cohesively, I just don't feel like it works. So that's my thoughts on the... Now you've all left, essentially. Let's get started with The Blessing Way. Continuation of Season 2's cliffhanger Anasazi, brought to us by Chris Carter. And you can tell. Do you remember Little Green Men, penned by Morgan and Wong, that was just the best season opener you could possibly get? The Blessing Way is definitely not that. So you're I guess it's probably better if you're watching them back to back. But as a season opener, it is slow as all hell. You've got that high octane cliffhanger episode, and then you lead into this one, and you've got Scully. It's fascinating to watch Scully desperately seeking Mulder, believing that he's dead. I do hate, though, there's a scene where Scully walks to her mum's. I'm not quite clear where she walked from, because Maggie is like, Dana, what happened? Scully's just like, oh, I broke my shoes, I walked here. And I'm like, how far? Like, did she walk from DC to Baltimore, or what? Okay. But this episode, this scene was drastically cut. And I highly recommend you check out the deleted scene on the DVDs, or the Blu-rays. Because the scene continues. You have Scully in the actual episode, you have Scully turn up. But then it cuts when Scully hugs her mum. But in the extended scene, Scully discusses with Maggie about, she feels like she did the wrong thing. She did what Mulder would do, and she's put her job on the line. She's worried that her dad would not be proud of her and stuff like that. I think it's interesting to see this conflict in Scully, who is now is essentially a part of this job, as a part of this, of the XFiles. She's completely engulfed in it now. And she feels like she did the right thing, but it wasn't to the book. She didn't go to her OPR meeting when she should have. But she did it because she thought it was right, and she was supporting Mulder and stuff like that. And it's interesting to see that conflict in her, and to then see Melissa come in and say, you've lost somebody and stuff like that. And Scully's like, just don't do this. I am in a lot of pain right now. Just back off. And that is fascinating to watch, character development wise, and just the Scully family dynamic wise. We get scenes later on through like the cancer arc and stuff like that. But I just found this really fascinating. It's quite a bit poorly written at times regarding Melissa, because Melissa just does nothing but spout her new age stuff that she did in one breath. You need to have faith, you need to do this. And it got a little repetitive from one breath, but I found it a fascinating scene, and I'm gutted that it was cut. It certainly could have easily been replaced any of a lot of the stuff in the rest of this episode. Because I just felt it was really impactful emotionally and interesting to see Scully's side of things, to see how this job affects her. But there's an interesting quote from Chris Carter on, I think it's like Christmas Carol or Emily, on the commentary for one of those episodes. He talks about a scene that was cut showing Emily. And he says that, emotional stuff gets cut when the plot needs to keep moving. And unfortunately, I think he's too interested in this episode in just going, ooh, look at the shiny thing, look at this, instead of just focusing on those moments, regardless of how badly written it was. I just feel like there was a lot of stuff, because we have, so while Scully's mourning Mulder and trying to take down the culprits and stuff like that, to try and investigate what's going on, especially then when Frohickey, bless him, pissed out of his head, turns up on Scully's doorstep late at night and is mourning Mulder's death. The first of many. Technically it's the second, I guess, if you include Colony Endgame. He came close in that, but but yeah, his first assumed death proper. It's so you've got that side of things, especially then when she's been hunted down for the details from the DAT tape and that they were given in Anasazi. But then you've got Mulder's side of things. Mulder, who somehow, miraculously, knew that he should hide under the bodies that were in the buried train car, and somehow had the time to, I don't know, bury himself in them before the explosion went off or something. And then somehow tunnels his way out. And the Anasazi tribe, oh my god, Albert Hosteen and stuff, they find him and then take him to their hut to perform the blessing way rites, where he gets to decide whether to live or die. And this scene goes on forever, and it is so boring and monologue-y. It's classic Carter monologue. It's just stupid. And I do hope that Floyd Red Crow Westerman was able to adjust his script to actually sound like him talking, because otherwise it comes across as a white guy writing how he thinks Native Americans speak, which is a little awkward. I do like the way that Hosting calls Mulder the FBI man, as opposed to by his name. But yeah, it felt a little awkward at times. But yeah, no, so this goes on, and apparently, so Mulder is floating in space, deciding whether to live or die. And his two people, his two guardian angels, are Deep Throat, who just apparently strings random words together and thinks they're philosophical. Honestly, you're sat there and you're like, and he's just like, my dear friend, and you're like, okay, you were actually lying to him, and I don't know if they are actual ghosts or just Mulder's imaginings or what. But you have Deep Throat, who just, okay, he was a big character in season 1, I guess. Any excuse to see Jerry Harding, then great. And of course, Mulder's dad, who had just died the previous episode, which makes sense. Except, Bill Mulder is a massive liar. Mulder asks him, is Samantha here? And Bill Mulder's like, no, like, you idiot, of course she's not here. And you're like, and of course you don't find this out until season 7, which just goes to show that they probably didn't know what had happened to Samantha at this point. And of course, I mean, they're not going to give away anything, but, like, it just feels really bad to then know that, come season 7, you're like, I mean, technically she's not there. She's in some playground playing with other kids in some backfield, I guess. But yeah, I was just like, wow. With hindsight, knowing what happens, you're like, wow, you were such a poopy liar, Bill Mulder. I mean, he was anyway, but yeah. So yeah, but these scenes of the Blessing Way go on way too long. They are super boring. And then out of nowhere, when Mulder finally comes to, he goes storming into his mum's, where she's looking at this really, really badly photoshopped family photo, like of young Rebecca Toolan and young Peter Donat, and then, the kids that they had in for Mulder and Samantha young. Yeah, that is so badly photoshopped. It's hilarious. But he turns up at his mum's, and all of a sudden he's like, there's this photo from so-and-so, and I need to see it, and stuff like that. And they bring out this photo of the Syndicate and Bill Mulder with the Syndicate at this Strughold mining, which is, interesting because obviously Strughold was brought in later. But yeah, it's funny to see this picture, and you're just like, okay, like, it would have been nice to see this. If you're going to insist on this Blessing Way thing going on forever, it would have been nice to have some indication that information was actually imparted to him. But yeah, this episode we actually get to see the Syndicate proper. We finally get First Elder, Well Manicured Man, and stuff like that. So it's interesting to meet them. And I love the tension where Scully doesn't know who to trust, because Well Manicured Man at Bill Mulder's funeral, I'm impressed Tina Mulder turned up actually for that. I thought that was quite impressive considering how much she hated that man by the end. But Well Manicured Man turns up and meets Scully, because Scully she has this dream, and I need to get into this in another video from something I've read more recently, a book I've read recently. But it's interesting that Scully has the dream where she sees Mulder that tells her that he's not dead, to not give up and stuff. So giving like a slight psychic feel to Scully. But she goes to assure Tina that she doesn't think Mulder's dead. And Well Manicured Man is there to find out information and go, well, what do you know, and stuff like that. And he warns her that somebody's going to come and kill her, but it might be somebody she knows, that she trusts. And immediately she becomes suspicious of Skinner, and seeing her paranoia is something we'll get into with Scully later on in this season. But I just find it fascinating. Again, I found Scully's arc in this episode way more interesting than what the hell was going on with Mulder. Once you knew he was alive, you're just like, yeah, whatever, I don't even care about it. But yeah, so I think there's a lot of interesting stuff with Scully. I felt like the stuff that could have been progressed upon wasn't in favour of showing these shiny other scenes. Sorry, I have to move my microphone. So yeah, I feel like the pacing is awful, and I don't find it particularly interesting. And it's interesting to see the bit where they bring up about the the White Buffalo and that, especially then with William and Wyoming in season 9. But yeah, no, this episode is just, it's so tedious. You're just like, okay, we've had the build up. This just feels like an end, like a point to get to the finale of the three-parter, if you know what I mean. So yeah, I gotta put it in B, because I mean, it's not the worst episode this show has to offer, but I just find it mediocre. And yeah, not bad direction by Bob Goodwin at all, but yeah, I just didn't get into it. Whereas Paperclip is way better. We come in after Scully's sister, Melissa, is the one who actually got shot by Krychek and this other hitman. But Scully ended the previous episode in with Mulder in a freeway, pointing guns at Skinner in Mulder's apartment. And Mulder turns up, and yeah, it's really tense. And you're like, what is going on? So we've had a good lead in. It's fun to see Skinner then go, actually, I'm the one who's got the DAT tape. I'm the one who stole it from you. I'm trying to hide it from these guys. I'm trying to show that I'm on your side. And it's nice to see Skinner, who's really come a long way. I mean, he will continue to make, deals with the devil and stuff like that throughout the show. But I always enjoy seeing what they do with his character. sort of revival. Um, so yeah, it's interesting to see him stepping up to go, look, I'm trying to help you guys. Back off! Take your guns off me. Scully tells Mulder that she knew he wasn't dead, and he's like, how did you know? And she's like, I just knew. And immediately you get Eve vibes. And yeah, I just think it's interesting then to follow them as they're trying to investigate, like, to go to this Strughold mining facility, and they find the files, and then Scully finds out about her sister, but from the gunman, but she's not able to get to the hospital because there's the fear that they're going to get, taken out or something. So they got to stay clear. So she's desperate to get to the hospital. They send Albert to the hospital to watch over Melissa, and Maggie's just like, where's Dana? And she doesn't know if Dana's okay or anything. That poor woman goes through so much, seriously. And yeah, it's kind of heartbreaking because you can see again this toll that it is taking on Scully, and the fact that her sister was shot and that bullet was meant for her. It just weighs so much on her, and kudos to Gillian for acting her chops off on that one. I just think it's a more interesting episode. Victor Klemper is an interesting character to bring in because, of course, especially this season, we see how much, the government and the syndicate have worked with Nazis and the Japanese from the Second World War on human experimentation and stuff like that. So I think having him introduced here to show the lengths that were going on with the human experiments is a good place to put him. There's some beautiful cinematography when they go to the mining building, and then they're going through the tunnels and they find the files and the smallpox inoculation samples and stuff like that, and you can see that they're starting to process what's going on, that this is way bigger than they expected. Again, Scully might see an alien, or doesn't see an alien, or doesn't know what to say about the alien, and Mulder sees a flying spaceship, which is really nicely shot and well, good CG, and just the way it's, they use lighting rigs and stuff to build upon to give that effect. I think this is it's not the best episode, it's certainly not the best Mytharc episode, but I think coming in from Anasazi, it is way stronger, from Blessing Way, it is way stronger. It sets up stuff, regarding Melissa Scully's death, and thankfully that gets sorted out later, and we'll talk about that when we get to it. But yeah, I think this is a lot better. Nicely directed by Rob Bowman. Some advert randomly came up on my screen. Anyway, yeah. So I'm gonna put Paperclip in A. Like I said, I think that's way better than it. But still a good. Especially it's a Carter script. It's not the greatest, but it's certainly more engaging than Blessing Way, and good direction from Rob Bowman. So anyway, next up we have D.P.O. Brought to us by Howard Gordon, and it feels very much like a Howard Gordon episode. That's not a derogatory, statement. I just mean I don't know. There's just something about it. Some of these writers, you get used to their styles and just the way direction and stuff like that. It just feels like a Howard Gordon episode. It is one of his better ones. We got guest stars Giovanni Ribisi and Jack Black, and they do really well in this episode. And I think it's a really interesting concept to have like this teenager who is, struck by lightning and then can control electricity. And I think it's got some interesting set pieces. My biggest issue with this episode, I always enjoy watching this episode, but when you think about it too much, you just come off with like, honestly, those gamers just socially inept, always, always idolizing women and chasing after people that they can't have and stuff like that. And yeah, it plays into some unpleasant tropes. And when you think about this episode too much, it's just nothing but some skanky teen lusting after his teacher, and you're just like, okay, that's an X-File? But I think if you think about it too much, that's what you come away with, and it really plays on, like, the fact that, like, he's a gamer. So when they turn up, it's hilarious, because they go to the arcade, and the Sonic theme is really prevalent. And I don't know, was Sonic ever in the arcades? I don't remember. It's been a long time. But I'm just like, okay. I guess they were like, people will know the Sonic the Hedgehog theme. The Green Hill Zone theme. But yeah, I was just like really distracted by that. But so yeah, it feels like just, ooh, bloody teenagers, goth teenagers and stuff like that. But it's really well done. It's really well acted. I find Rabise's Darin very... I don't know, you don't find him remotely sympathetic, but you you don't want bad stuff to happen to him. You just want him to be stopped. I will say, whenever I think of this episode, though, all I can think of is him going, Miss Kavit, and I'm just like, oh god. The teacher, I will say, I'm sorry, I find her super annoying. I'm like, there is nothing remotely interesting about this character. She doesn't even remotely really seem all that bothered when her husband ends up in the hospital. She's just like, oh, whatever, just leave me alone. I need to deal with this. I'm just like, okay. So, yeah, I think there's some interesting dialogue here. I think it's really well written. I always enjoy it. The story is a little thin on the ground, but I find it entertaining. I don't think it's perfect by any means, but yeah, I gotta put it in the A. I gotta, because I just find it entertaining, and I think it's always interesting to see actors that become big later on, in their early days, and to see where they've come from, kind of thing. Jack Black doesn't have much of a role here. He's a lot more calmer, quieter, but you can still see where he would go from what he's doing on this kind of thing. But yeah, no, I find it fun. So that's D.P.O. Definitely worth checking. It's one of those ones that doesn't really get thought of much. I think more could have been done with it. But yeah, for what it is, it's funny to see him though doing the whole disrupting traffic with the traffic lights and stuff, and then seeing what they did with William in season 11. Less we think about that, the best, I guess. But yeah, it's funny to see something like this, kind of the originator. Next up, we've got an edit, because when the stupid advert came up, it messed up the lineup. So I, unable to see, put like bloody Revelations and whatever it was up here instead of D.P.O. and Paperclip. So yeah, there's a jump for that. Next up, we have got Clyde Bruckman's Final Repose, brought to us by Darin Morgan. And there's a good reason to why this one gets talked about so much. It's amazing. It's possibly my favourite Darin Morgan episode. There's a couple. I mean, I think I've said that about Humbug, but I think that's why I said that about Humbug, because I felt that one gets overlooked a lot. This Clyde Bruckman is one of those episodes that gets a lot of attention, a lot of love, and there's a good reason. It's well acted, it's well directed, the script is amazing. It's so... What Darin Morgan does so well is he puts a lot of wit in, but there's also a lot of heart. So even when there are jokes, they have a reason. And this episode is so heartfelt And Peter Boyle's portrayal of Clyde Bruckman is so just exhausted. You can see this guy, this guy who has this ability, this psychic ability, to predict the future and stuff. He could be doing this stuff, but, helping himself in that, but he doesn't. And he's just exhausted from this, ability to see the future. He hates seeing everybody's death. So, just by being near them, touching something or whatever that they've touched. And, I think it's one of those things that people make out that superpowers are the most amazing thing. And you get something like this. It's not over-dramatizing it, but it's just going, look, seriously, you may think it's amazing. You may think you want this. This isn't a blessing. This is a curse. And you feel it from his portrayal and stuff. The characterization here is excellent. And, it's kind of sad that Peter Boyle's no longer with us, but he was just perfect. He did some amazing roles in his career. For me, this is probably one of, there's certainly ones I've seen. This is probably one of my favourite ones, hands down. He deserved the Emmy that he got for guest star. But it's funny to see. God, I can't remember the actor's name. The guy who played, who was David Duchovny's stunt double. That's going to bug me. I normally know it. Without question. I'm going to add it here. Anyway, he was David Duchovny's stunt double. He plays the stupendous Yappy in this. And just the idea. I love that, you turn up at this crime scene and they're bitching about this person who's a bit spooky and stuff like that. And you think they're talking about Mulder. And then Mulder turns up and they're like, who are you? And it turns out they were talking about Yappy. So it's funny to see. I mean, David Duchovny has always griped at the fact that he feels like Darin Morgan doesn't like Mulder because he's always putting Mulder down in these episodes. But it's a nice kind of subversion on what you're expecting and stuff. I love that Scully is the skeptic, but at the same time she feels like she's believing. And that was an interesting thing, actually, in D.P.O. at the beginning, when they're talking about the case. Scully's like, after everything we've just been through, I hope you don't think this is a government cover-up or something. Which was, like, one of the first times we had some acknowledgement of stuff happening in the Mytharc, then in a Monster of the Week episode. So then we have, Scully was quite a bit of a believer in that episode. And here we see Scully she's obviously, like, certainly skeptical about the whole psychic thing, but she humours Bruckman later on and stuff, and it shows her kindness, that she's not trying to make people feel like idiots, that she's not putting them down because they believe something, or they believe that they can do something. She might not believe necessarily in the ability to be psychic, but she believes that he believes, and this happens with Mulder, but she's kind enough to just humour Bruckman, and again, I feel that's a nice, again, everybody says that Morgan loves Scully and puts her up on his pedestal, and I don't think it's necessarily that. I just think he's better at characterizing her than, say, Carter. So yeah, there's a lot of really nice tender moments in this. There's a lot of really good humor it's not done for the jokes. It's just really well written, witty banter. I just think this is well acted. There's not much I can say about this episode that hasn't been said by everybody else. I highly recommend this one. It's just amazing. It's just got some excellent performances in. and yeah, just story wise, I never get bored of seeing it. And Scully gets a dog at the end, briefly. Poor Queequeg. He gets for a few episodes. Yeah, it's just fun to see Scully seeing things and stuff like that. There's not much I can really. Sorry, I'm struggling to, because I just feel so many of people have talked about this episode kind of ad nauseum, to the point that there's been times where like, oh god, it's not that good, and then you watch it and you're like, oh, it is. Oh yes, it definitely is. So yeah, I think that's this is definitely one of those episodes where I get really put off by stuff sometimes when I feel like people are overrating it. But this, I don't think you can overrate something that is this good. So yeah, it had to be S. Next up, we have got The List, brought to us by Chris Carter. And you know what I was saying about Howard Gordon? Oh yeah, this feels like a Chris Carter episode. So this is a really odd one. It starts out, so you have this guy, Nietzsche Manley, who is put in executed in a prison, and it turns out that he's been really badly treated by the guards and the head of the prison, who's played by guest star J.T. Walsh, and it's. I think there's some levels here that I can't necessarily comment on. I feel like, you've got all these white guards, and it's a very predominantly black inmate population with only, I think, like 1 or 2 white faces in the whole cast. And I think that's an interesting study of, culture and stuff like that, and especially, being punished and downtrodden by these white guards and stuff. That's something I can't comment on, but I thought that was an interesting study of the prison system kind of thing. But so Nietzsche has this list of 5 people that he wants dead because they were dicks to him, and it becomes the titular list is nobody knows who has it. Nobody knows who's on the list. So a body turns up, and Mulder and Scully are there to investigate, and they're trying to find out where the list is, or who has it, who's the next victim. But what it turns out, and something I never even thought was a thing, because I just don't feel like it's particularly well, because like people believe that Nietzsche's come back. He's a ghost or something, and he is killing people. Whereas Scully is like, no, it's one of the prisoners. It's somebody who got to these, who got to these people. But what I didn't realise is Nietzsche apparently was actually resurrected. He said he would come back, and apparently he did. As a fly, that's the story. Now, I did not realise this until I saw Chris Carter talking about it. And I was just like, what? Now, there's a joke there, all that bravado. And then, it turns out that actually, he only came back as a fly, the most ineffectual thing ever. And especially because the amount of paranoia that gets stirred up, that ends up probably being the thing that kills people more. It kind of plays in actually a little bit of War of Coprophages later on. But, this story, it hits a point where that J.T. Walsh's character is going to die at some point. He has to. He's like the last name on the list, because he was... I can't believe he wasn't the first person on the list. But I guess, got to make him suffer and that, and see other people die and be paranoid and stuff. Paranoia is actually something that really permeates a lot of these episodes this season. I know it's something, it was a main theme for the show, but this season particularly, we've got quite a few episodes that play on that paranoia. But the problem is the episode then gets to its point that it doesn't know how to execute an ending. I mean, so much so that Mulder and Scully are going along in the car because they think that it was the wife, or they think there was one of the guards who was sleeping with Nietzsche's wife on the sly. I will say though, you gotta laugh, especially in hindsight. You gotta laugh at Scully's line when she and Mulder are surveilling Manley's house, his wife, and Scully actually says, a woman has needs. She can't wait around for her, for her husband to be reincarnated. And you're just like, wow, Scully. Look forward to season 8 on that one. So yeah, that line you just can't help but yeah, Scully. That's totally how you. But anyway, so they're watching the wife and that, who then like thinks that Nietzsche has come back via this guard or something and kills him. So then it gets wrapped up that it was these people. So Mulder and Scully go to leave, and they're in the car, and Mulder's just like, this makes no sense. He's totally dissatisfied with the ending, and even Scully's just like, that may be, but what are we gonna do? And they're just lost, and then they drive off frustrated without an ending. And then JT Walsh passes in his car, and the ghost, because apparently now he is a ghost, not the fly, the ghost of Nietzsche Manley turns up in his rearview mirror and then strangles him from behind. And that's the end of the episode. I felt like they didn't know what to do at the end. It's not a bad episode, it just plods. I think the set is really good. The fact that they built this 3-story cell block was excellent set design. But yeah, it's not actually a bad episode. When I always think about it as crap, but then I watch it and I'm like, yeah, I'm into it. But it's just that ending. It does not stick the ending at all. And I don't know what it is. This episode is very green. There seems to be a green filter on it. Grotesque later on has a blue filter on it, and this one just looked green and sickly green and misty all the time. I don't know what was going on in those showers. There was so much mist in those showers. It's not a bad episode. I didn't feel, it is telegraphed because you see the flies everywhere, and then you get the maggots in that excellent makeup job where you find a body covered in maggots. That was really well done. But I don't know, maybe I'm just stupid. I never was under the impression that was what Nietzsche had come back as. I just thought maybe he was directing them as a ghost or something. But that ending just did not stick it for me. I gotta put it B. I just feel like it plods. I think I'm going to get a lot of hatred for that. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with me. But yeah, it's just for me personally. And again, I don't know if it comes down to when I think about this season. But yeah, it just doesn't do it for me. I just felt it was a bit but next up, we have Too Shy. And this is an interesting one because it's easy to forget that the XFiles came around just as the internet was becoming available to people and becoming popular. This was one of the first fandoms to have actually quite a lot of input into the show. Skinner probably wouldn't have been as popular had as many episodes had his popularity online been so prevalent. There's little things that became popular. There's stuff when we get to Syzygy, comments people had made about stuff that was going on in the show and that. It's very easy to forget that, the impact that the internet and the fandom had on this show in the early days, and vice versa. So you then get this episode that is centered on online dating. And it's easy to forget that online dating was even a thing back then. It's such a commercial thing now that we forget. It's easy to forget how simple it was back in the day. But so there's this guy who is a fat sucker, who goes online and essentially hooks up with these poor, lonely, fat people to suck out their fat when he meets them. And I don't know. I find this a little offensive. I mean, even when I was skinnier, I found it offensive. I don't know. I think there's something a little off about it. I don't know what it is. It's like, oh, the only people that would be looking for dates online are fat, lonely women. And I'm like, really? Oh, okay. Now, I know that's not the focus of the episode, but I don't know. That's just one of those things that has always niggled at me. But the other thing that bugs me about this episode, I can't help it. I don't know why. The guy who plays Virgil Incanto, the antagonist, the fat sucker, he always makes me think of the singer Brian Ferry. And I don't know what it is. He looks nothing like him, really. But whenever I see him, I'm just waiting for him to just start singing Let's Stick Together or something like that. I'm just like, okay. It's so bizarre. I don't know what it is. That is just something that always niggles at me. Kudos to the girl that playing the blind girl in this, who is actually a strong character, not just some helpless. I was expecting the blind girl to die, to be honest. So the fact that she and her extrasensory smell, sense of smell, was able to save the day. Kudos to her. I think it's a well acted episode. The makeup of like the bodies that are left behind with this gross saliva, fat burning goop, acidy stuff that gets left behind on the bodies. Amazing makeup job by the special effects team. That was genuinely creepy and troubling. And the makeup job of the fact that when he sucks, it didn't make sense in a way, because I'm like, wait, isn't he sucking it out of their body? And also, I would like to say, that's not how that works through the mouth, but okay. You can't just suck out of people's extremities the fat via their mouth. But the image of that seal of whatever that is, fat saliva over the mouth, when the woman near the end, gets stopped from being consumed. That image of her struggling for breath with that over the mouth, that is really disconcerting. I don't know how much he thought he was going to get out of Scully when he attacked Scully. And then the other thing that bugs me actually about this episode, there's this one scene where he turns up at the last lady's house, her flat apartment, and he shuts the door, and he just looks at the camera as the door closes. Like, you got the light from the door coming in, and then the door shuts, and he's just staring at the camera. He's like, okay then. And I'm like, okay? I felt that was really off, and a fourth wall break that really came out of nowhere, so I don't like that. But genuinely, I actually like the episode for all its faults. It's not perfect by any means, and I think this is one of those episodes that you have to be in the right mood for. But I just thought, as an X-File, as a Monster of the Week, special effects, acting, I say acting for the most part. The girl who plays the blind girl and the woman who plays the last victim, they're a little quite fake at times, a little over the top. But otherwise, I felt it was well acted. It's interesting to see. This is like the second episode where Scully has had to deal with an absolute dick, sexist pig. She had it again in D.P.O. With the sheriff who was like, well, you don't know nothing about us and our lightning here, so f*** you. And it's like, dude, back off. She's telling you what the cause of death is, so back off. But this is like the second episode where she has to deal with this sexist pig who ends up dead. So I guess that's his comeuppance for that. Just as he starts to accept Scully as an actual investigator despite being a woman. But he acknowledges that, why do I keep getting these adverts come up? What is going on? I didn't even touch anything this time. I do not know why that keeps happening. Anyway, so yeah, it's interesting to see Scully deal with, especially at this time. We saw it in Softlight, where Scully mentioned about how it's so difficult for women to get by in the very male orientated job. So it's interesting to see some of that pushback. And the way it's handled here, I felt was not the best, but not bad by any means. So yeah, I just felt like there was a lot of threads. I thought Mulder and Scully in this were entertaining. Like I say, makeup wise and stuff was really good. Really enjoy it. It's not the best, but again, this is one of those episodes I feel you have to be in the right mood for. And yeah, I think it's entertaining. And not one of those ones you normally think of. So yeah, I think it's better than yeah. I'm gonna put it in A, just because I mean these ones I could probably move down one and maybe put Too Shy there, but no, I think it's pretty much on the par with that. But next up we have The Walk. This is an interesting one because I used to get frustrated with it, kind of like in the Too Shy way, I guess. Because the problem is certainly back when I was growing up, disabled people on TV shows and in movies and that were always shown as these bitter, really antisocial people. And, just constantly chip on their shoulder like, I'm disabled. I have to live like this. Oh my god, my world is going to end. Even worse, when you would have a character that was normally able-bodied, and then something would happen to them. And this is especially on the soaps. There was this one character on this one soap who lost their sight due to an accident. And they were so nasty about visually impaired people. And this is, for a kid growing up as a visually impaired person. You then have somebody on this TV show just constantly being nasty about visually impaired people, putting down about how their life has come to an end. Their health was back to normal in like a month. I'm not even kidding. So yeah, I grew up with, you would constantly have this, be it people in wheelchairs or with sensory deprivation or whatever. So then you get an episode like this where you see this veteran from the army who's, a quadriplegic, sorry. And he's just like, oh no, we're going down that route again, because he's so just nasty. But actually, I guess it's growing up and growing wiser and stuff like that. But when you think about it, and you think about just when you think about how military veterans are treated and pushed aside, they've done all this for their country and that, they've lost body parts or their lives or whatever due to what they've gone through, not even just mentally, not even just physically, but mentally as well. I think this is this episode is an interesting exploration about those feelings. Even then when you have like the group sessions where they're talking about their feelings and that, and this guy Rappo is just like, dude, what the hell? They don't care about us. They've, neglected us. We're just dumped here. And of course he's like the worst off there physically, but he doesn't care about their you know, the fact that they're happy they're alive and stuff like that. He's just consumed by this anger and frustration, and yeah, I just think it's an interesting exploration of the psyche that's left behind after you know, war and military action. So and he's just, Repo is just excellently acted by is it Ian Tracy, I think, and the special effects to make him look like a quadriplegic person are amazing. There's some excellent green screening and mirrors and other trickery that's used, especially like when he's on the wheelchair. And Willie Garson, who guest stars here as Roach, who kind of is like, oh, he's my captain, I gotta serve him and stuff like that, you know, acts as his mailman and go-between. He's pushing Rapper around on his wheelchair, and it is so convincing. Somehow a season 3 episode made this look way more effective and convincing than Mulder in season 5's Kill Switch. I don't know if it's just that Tracy was better at knowing to not move too much when laying on the bed with the prosthetics on him or something. But yeah, it's really good makeup and really good acting. And it's really unnerving. I mean, we start out with a really good teaser where you have this other patient at the hospital who tries to kill himself, and Rappo's astral projection, you know, stops this guy from killing himself, and this guy's just like, I just want to die. I'm tired. I think he's like lonely. I think he's got no family and stuff like that. And you know, he's just consumed by that. So he tries to kill himself, and Rappo won't let him, and he's like, "Come on, soldier, and fight him in front of." But that opener is really, you know, seeing the guy as somebody who has a bad scald scar on their legs, knowing how painful that is to get burnt like that. It's just seeing him get that all over his body in this hot tub is just terrifying. And then, you know, there's something really unsettling about the ghost and astral projection. And then there's this scene in a swimming pool where this female officer is attacked, and you see her swimming, and then she looks up and you see the shadow of Rappo with all his limbs coming and drowning her. And there's some really good tense action in this and kills, and you feel bad for the captain, Callahan, who's just trying to watch out for his people and that, and but then his son gets killed in this sand pit, and you're thinking, oh, the kid will get saved in time. He doesn't. It's really dark. This episode is super dark, and I just think it's excellent writing by I think this was John Scheiben's first episode. I could be wrong, but considering later episodes in this season that suck, this is probably one of his stronger outings on his own. I think it's a really enjoyable episode and a really creepy ghost setup. I don't feel like Mulder and Scully are particularly effective, although I do like when Scully's talking to Rappo and he gets super like, yeah, I can think of a few things I'd like to do if I could, and Mulder like steps in really pissed off, super protective, which is again is fun to see, considering when Scully was dealing with the sexist detective and sheriff in the likes of D.P.O. and Too Shy, he let her fend for himself. He didn't do this whole knight in shining armor thing, which is good because it shows that he sees her as his equal, and knows that she can handle herself. But on a shippy level, it is nice sometimes to see him step in and go, back the f*** off. Especially because, we have so much of seeing jealous Scully. It's nice, not necessarily jealous, but protective. So that was kind of sweet. I just think there's some really good special effects, some good acting. I just find this one interesting. It's again, this is one of those ones, kind of like Too Shy. When I think about it, I'm like, eh. But then I actually watch it, and I'm like, oh no, I do like this one. Again, I don't think it's S tier by any means, but I think it's well done, and I think it's an interesting. I know I've said interesting a lot for this one, but I think it's a really good way of studying. What could happen with these soldiers and what they would do if they had that power, despite having his physical body not available to him for use, to then astral project himself to try and get some kind of vengeance. I just think it's a really good episode. Not perfect, but entertaining, which is going to be a word we're going to use a lot in this season. But next up, we have got Oubliette. And again, this is another one of those ones that I'm just like, when I think of this season. And that's not fair, because actually this is a good episode. We see Jewel State guest starring as a victim of this very creepy pedophile, kind of 1 hour photo-esque guy who takes photos of these school teens and then kidnaps them and takes pictures of them in his cellar and stuff like that. I'm like, ew, gross. And again, I think it plays on really well. There's nothing really paranormal in this episode per se. It's, yes, you have a psychic connection between I don't remember Jewel State's character's name. And this other woman, Lucy Householder. But that's about it. So it plays on very well like that kind of Donny Foster, the Irresistibles of the series, where there's just some fucking creepy people out there. And the paranormal element is the victims that are connected because of what they've gone through at the hands of this arsehole. So, I don't think, and I don't mean, Lucy Householder's an interesting character, but it's not that I think she's bad, but I'm not sure about Tracy Ellis's acting as the character. It works in a way, because after what she's been through, it would be fair and understandable that she would medicate herself so heavily. But she just absolutely seems kind of just about the whole thing most of the time. And I'm just like, I don't really care much for her. And she doesn't really care about... She's like, well, why should I go through that again? It's not my problem that this other girl's going through it. And I kind of get that. But, yeah, the rest of it, she just actually just like, oh, well, I don't care. So whatevs. She's so doped up. And I just find it a little distracting, if I'm honest. This is this is very Conduit-ish, in that we get Scully again going, don't equate this girl to your sister. And that is one of those things that really always pisses me off in this show. That Mulder, Mulder gets himself invested, and you can understand why Scully might draw that correlation. But at the same time, it just always bugs me that she equates him getting caring and getting super invested to him seeing the character as his sister. And I'm like, and this comes to a head for me in, say, the I Want to Believe movie. But yeah, it always gets frustrating to me that she just doesn't accept that he's just this into it because of the caring person he is, and because of investigator, and because as a profiler, he gets into the mindset of these people. That is just one of those things that bugs me. And, you know, as he says, you know, not everything I do or say or think or feel, you know, goes back to my sister, so back off. Scully is actually a bit annoying in this episode, to be honest, and I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's because he is so headstrong on the believing thing regarding the psychic power, or what. But yeah, just Scully seems really like, yeah, whatever, Mulder, there's no hope, there's no, you know, she's not going to be found, let's just leave it, let's just let the police do their job. And you're like, wow, oh, okay. So yeah, I do get a little frustrated with Scully's characterization in this, and I think that's one of those things which bugs me about this episode, as well as Tracy Ellis's acting. Yeah, I just this is totally creepy. Jill State is amazing, and it is heart-wrenching to see, you know, Mulder going out into the water to save the girl, fighting, and then the, you know, you see it cuts back to Lucy, where it shows her as you know, drowning, taking on that water so that the girl can survive. I think there's a good X-File here. It feels a little, again, it does feel very conduit-ish. I don't know. I'm going to get a lot of flack for this. I don't think it's a bad episode by any means. I do feel it's a bit middle of the road-ish. So I am going to put it in B. Because if I'm picking episodes out this season, that it's like I say, it's not a bad, unenjoyable episode. I think there's some choices here that, because, I mean, like, the girl gets out of the house, like, halfway through the episode. And then there's this chase into the water and stuff, and it's tense. But I feel like the last 20 minutes are just like, so what do we do now? So, yeah, I don't know, I just feel there's a little issue with pacing. I don't know. Maybe it's just not for me. I can't explain it. I think there's a lot of wiggle room for improvement. But yeah, like I say, I could have put it a lot worse, but it's not. It's just very, it exists. But next up, we have got our next Mytharc. That is Nisei. And actually, Nisei 731 is an interesting two-parter, because it really starts to... We see a lot of things connected as a result of Scully's abduction start to come to fruition. You know, we have her visit due to a number of things that have come about due to this alien autopsy videotape that Mulder bought. I do like the joke. They're always good at making jokes about Mulder's adult entertainment fixation. But due to this alien autopsy video that Mulder bought for an extortionate amount of nearly $30, $29.95, they end up in finding this list of MUFON members. And while Mulder goes to chase up some other facts, because Skinner has told them to back off this Japanese diplomat, Scully goes to investigate this list of possible victims and ends up in Allentown, where she meets, she believes she's going to see this Betsy Hagopian, and she ends up meeting Penny Northern and a number of other MUFON members, female members, who have all had microchips removed from their neck. And this was something that happened to Scully in, I didn't mention it when we were going through the episode, because I felt like I'd said a lot about the episode. But in The Blessing Way, Scully, she was suspended from her job, and she had a microchip removed from her neck after going through the metal detector, and she didn't think anything of it at the time. And then it turns out that all these women have had these microchips removed from their neck. And it turns out, and this is the genius, I will say this is one of the genius things. I don't know if they knew that they were going to go further with this at the time or what. But it turns out that Betsy Hagopian and all these other women are either dead or dying from cancer after having the chips removed from their neck. And there's a bit later on when Scully's relaying that these women knew about her in the White Place, about where she was abducted and stuff like that. And she says it's really unnerving. And this is what's happening. And Mulder's like, but you're okay, right, Scully? And at the time, you don't really think about it. But knowing what happens in season 4, it's really trippy to go back to this episode and see that. But there's a lot of action here. We get to see Senator Matheson come back. Like I say, there's that groundwork laid for Scully's cancer arc that you don't think is going to happen, but does. There's some really good chases in this episode. This two-parter, I always get actually muddled up with Piper Maru and Apocrypha. Because when I think of Mulder jumping off the boat where all these people swarming out, I think of Piper Maru, but it's not. It's in this episode. Yeah, so there's some weird, and it's something that turns up in a lot of actual season 3. But there's this bit, and I don't know what the choice was made. Somebody got a Mister machine, that kind of makes everything look very soft and cloudy and stuff like that. It's like a smoke machine, but it is more of a misting effect. It really shows up in Senator Matheson's office, because Mulder's there and everything, like, there is weird lighting and it's all diffused and stuff. It's really weirdly looking, and it's something that this episode actually, like when they go to the police station where this Japanese diplomat that they've arrested after finding him at this crime scene, which is one thing where Mulder says that he's fed up of keep losing his gun. And apparently this was something that everybody kept picking up on. I never really picked up on it. So I'm like, really? Is this a thing? And I guess, watching these episodes back, I'm like, yeah, he does lose it a bit, but not that much. He doesn't even use it that much. So it's a fun line, and it's something that has now been taken to the nth degree in, like, fan fiction and stuff. But yeah, I'm like, it wasn't, and especially, like, even Fight Club, they make a reference to it, and I'm like, okay. Yeah, they go to this police station where they've taken the Japanese diplomat, and that is super smoky there, and I guess it makes sense there because, maybe there's cops and that there that are smoking a lot, or even perps that are smoking. But unless Matheson is sat there smoking like a chimney, there is no reason why his office should be that cloudy. So yeah, I don't know what it is. This episode particularly really uses that style of cinematography in that, and I just find it really distracting and really ugly. It's really ugly, and I just feel like this episode simply is ugly. But I think there's some really good action scenes here. There's some really nice scenes between Mulder and Scully, while they're trying to figure out the case. Especially then when they go off and especially when they then go off and do their own things, investigation wise. I think it's interesting that Scully comes back and she's like, do you even know where I've been? And you're like, yeah, actually, Mulder's not really checked in with her all day. What's going on? There's nice Mulder and Scully moments here. There's good action. Really good direction. I just think it's really ugly. These episodes aren't necessarily my favourite in the grand scheme of Mytharc wise. But I do think, like I say, these and Piper Mario Apocrypha are interconnected. They're really tightly connected. I love that stress of, Mulder's got to jump on the train, and you're like, no way. And Scully's like, Mulder, just don't. And you've got X there telling her to tell him to just don't do it, to stay off the train. And she's like, Mulder, just don't. And he's like, yeah, but the train. He's like a puppy. You just can't tell it. He's like, but Scully, the train. And she's like, Mulder, no. But Scully, the train. And then he still jumps on it. And that just says a lot about their partnership, to be honest. He's like, but yeah. And she's like, Mulder. But yeah, no, I love that. And it's really tense. And yeah, I think it's a really good, I think it's a good first part. There's a lot of build up here, that will get payoff later and in the second episode. I do have a little issue. Now, I know we're kind of at that point where Scully was more dealt with by humans and the Syndicate than aliens. But at the same time, when she's then recognizing this Dr. Ishimura and stuff, you're like, okay. She's like, no, I recognize him. And Mulder's like, I doubt it. She's like, no, I really know him. And then later on, we find out that it's because she recognizes, we find out in the next episode, that she remembers him from her time in the White Place. I'm just like, okay. And I guess it's because it's adding that human element, the experiments and stuff like that, onto her abduction, and especially as we're going to, more into how her abduction is going to affect her physiologically and stuff. But yeah, I just, that was something that always bugged me a little bit. But like I said, I don't think it's the best of the Mytharc episodes. But I think this lays a lot of groundwork, and is really tense, and there's a lot of good writing here. There's a lot of good banter and stuff like that. So, actually, you know what? I was only going to put it in A, but I think I'm going to put it in S. Yeah, I'm going to put it in S. Yeah, I think it's got enough lead up where it's entertaining, and I think this is one of those ones, like, I would watch these two on the VHS, and you watch them back to back, and they're a good, tense 2 hours of television. And I think that's why automatically I'm actually going to put 731 up there as well, because this has got excellent direction. I think Rob Bowman? I could be wrong. But 731 continues where Mulder is now on this train, and there's something a bit Murder on the Orient Express about this, as he's trying to figure out what's going on, and then, he finds this dead guy in that, and then he ends up in this secret train car, and he ends up in a secret train car where it then turns out that there's this alien-looking being, and he gets himself locked in with this assassin guy who tries garroting him for some reason, who we then find out is with the NSA, but maybe not with the NSA. I'm not quite clear if we were definite that he was NSA or if he was just faking it. So you have Mulder's investigation on the train, and then this tense, rush to try and get him out of this train car that has got a bomb in it. And then you've got Scully's investigation, as she ends up at this leper colony. And again, as I said earlier, I mentioned, about the Nazi and the Japanese scientists that were brought over by the government to continue human experimentation and stuff like that in America. And you see that these lepers in this colony were experimented on by, you know, Dr. Ishimura and other scientists, um, it's really haunting to see this mass grave that feels a lot like the end of The Great Escape when they all get shot. But to see that image of like these alien-esque looking child-sized beings, then just get taken out by this military fleet, military troop, is really unsettling. Unfortunately, like I say, then like Scully is just like, you know, Scully, who at this point has been quite understanding, and I mean, she's still been a skeptic, but you wouldn't believe, actually, if you watch this season, Scully is super believable. Like, she believes quite easily. It does not take much for her to start going, yeah, actually, I think you might be right, Mulder. And that's a little frustrating in a way, but at the same time, you know, my biggest gripe with this show is how much they keep resetting Scully's belief, skepticism cycle. So I guess I should be happy that at this point, especially after what happened in Paperclip, that she is like questioning the government and stuff like that, and everything that goes on with them. But at the same time, it does really ground like the whole abduction story, that it is nothing but you know, the conspiracy, the syndicate. Again, you know, we now have the First Elder stepping up to talk with Scully and try and present facts to her. And it annoys me that she just willingly accepts it. Like this strange guy who clearly works for like Smoking Man and that, or works with Smoking Man. You know, he's feeding her stuff, and she doesn't go, oh, well, maybe they're just giving me a fob off story, you know, kind of thing. She just accepts it. So then she tells Mulder that this being in the train car, yeah, no, it's not an alien, Mulder. It's not. And he's like, Scully, this is an alien. You haven't seen it. And she's like, I've seen this stuff, and I can understand why you would think it's an alien, but it's not. It's a leopard that's been experimented on. And then she says that she remembers, you know, she recognizes the train car because she was in the train car for her abduction. And, you know, First Elder is essentially, yeah, this is where we took you people to test on you and stuff like that. And again, she believes it. And I'm just like, Scully. And you're like, is this real, or is she being lied to? And it's good in a way because you don't know. You don't know if... and it's nice in a way because Mulder, unfortunately, this show constantly... Chris Carter refers to Mulder as the hero. And he seems to see Scully as just like this tag-along. And they always do this whole thing about science and stuff like that. But then it ends up where the fantasy, the supernatural stuff is always the correct answer. The Mulder is always right. So it's nice to see Scully kind of, you know, with her skepticism, be like, yeah, but there's this. And it's possible that actually there is a scientific grounding for this being that's on the train car, that it actually might not be an alien, that it might actually just be a poor human that's been experimented on. But they never really... I mean, it gets blown up in the end. So... whatever it was, whatever, closure, we don't care, it's gone. So yeah, I just think I have very conflicting issues, if that makes sense, with it. It's believable, but, and I don't know if that's just because you get so wrapped up in the two-parter that you want answers or definitive things or whatever. And you just don't know who to believe in. I mean, you know, this show teaches us, you know, trust no one and stuff. And you do start to question everything. So I think you end up... But yeah, I think there's really tense drama. You've got Scully, you know, checking frame by frame a videotape to find out the code to get Mulder out of the train car. And then you end up getting X who hasn't been in this whole season. We haven't seen him since Soft Light. You know, he turns up uh, and saves the day and saves Mulder out of the train car. Mulder has been knocked out by this NSA guy. Uh, X turns up, and it turns. We get this later on with Wet Wired, but Stephen Williams, who played X, was on another show at the time, and I think his absence is really well played because, you know, we had Mulder walk away from him after what happened in Soft Light. And I think it's good that X is then still there, you know, is there to help. You know, he told Scully last time, make sure he doesn't get on that train. And then he's turned up and made sure he's there. You know, he kind of wanted to get the thing out of the train car, but he had a choice, and he saved Mulder. So I think that shows a lot of depth to X's character. Despite the fact that we know he works for the bad guys, he does care enough to make sure that Mulder's out of there and continuing the fight, kind of thing. I think this might be the thing that starts maybe some suspicion on the Syndicate's part regarding X's allegiances, because then when we see Wetwire later on, you know, we see Smoking Man kind of clearly clicking onto the fact that, yeah, maybe X is helping these guys out. But yeah, I think just amazing, excellent action here, really tense. You know nothing's going to happen to Mulder and Scully, but at the same time, there's just some really tense, like with the scene of the clock on the bomb and stuff like that. Yeah, I just think there's good action. I just think this is a really good two-parter, a solid two-parter to watch. And again, like I said, it just lays a lot of groundwork. So yeah, good banter between Mulder and Scully. Yeah, I just really enjoy it. So I do recommend it. It's one of those things that, again, it's just one of those things that I never think of all that much. But as it is, I had a lot of fun. So yeah, I recommend that. If you're after a good Mytharc two-parter, that is definitely a good one. And feels kind of self-contained at times as well. I mean, yes, there's stuff that leads on from it, and like I say, a lot of stuff that gets built on in, say, Piper Maru. But yeah, I just feel like it's, you know, if you're just going to watch a two-parter Mytharc, if you don't like the Mytharc normally, especially when it starts to get too convoluted, I think this is a good that is a good step-off point to check out. But anyway, next up we have got Revelations. So, Revelations is the first episode really that starts to have Scully deals with religion, and, you know, having Scully as the believer and Mulder as the skeptic, reversing those roles. We had Miracle Man in season 1. That was a religious episode, but Scully's religion didn't really get touched upon at all. And I don't know if it's because post One Breath she started to look into her faith again a lot. But yeah, this is the first of the episodes where she really she is the believer. And okay, I don't like these episodes usually. Not because I feel like the religion can get a bit too preachy at times. But Mulder is a dick when he's the skeptic. It's so distracting. He is so nasty towards Scully. You know, I mean, we kind of saw it in, say, Beyond the Sea, when he was like, Scully, why are you believing? You know, this guy is dicking with us. But yeah, he's just like, she believes in the stuff, and instead of like going like she does, just maybe questioning, he's just like, Scully, you're so stupid. Just stop it. Just because your faith is clouding your judgment and all that stuff, and you're like, wow. Just, it's, I don't know. I just don't like it. I don't like what Mulder turns into when he's the skeptic. I find it a little condescending, and really disrespectful even to Scully's character. That yes, she questions his beliefs and stuff, but she doesn't like make him look stupid or that. She just goes, look, how about we look at it from here? Whereas usually, and this is more in like say episode like All Souls and that, it's not as bad here. But yeah, Mulder just gets on up his own butt, and it's so annoying. So I usually do not like these episodes at all. I do find them an interesting, again, like chance for Scully to show her investigative strengths and how her beliefs affect her life and decisions and stuff like that. Especially like as a lapsed Catholic, it's not at the forefront of her beliefs. Especially as a scientist. But I think it's interesting to show that facet of her character. And I think that's why I then get frustrated when I feel like Mulder is disrespecting that, or the writers, the result, are disrespecting that. But Revelations is actually the strongest. I mean, I'll probably change this. I'm just talking like from memory of thinking about things like All Souls and that. But I actually think Revelations is one of the stronger of the Scully as the Believer episodes. I think as well it shows, because we've seen Mulder caring and super protective of young girls, to then see Scully, it's kind of a little pre-William-ish, to then see her protecting this boy Kevin, who's actually good in the role. I don't know the actor's name who plays Kevin, but I thought he was good enough. He suffers with stigmata, and there's this business guy who might be the devil or just been in a cult long enough to believe that he's a Satan's prophet or something, is trying to take out anybody who has stigmata, and all the people that he's taken out, killed to this point, have all been fakes. People that have used like corn syrup and stuff like that as fake blood out of their hands. There's a nice image of Mulder, sticking his finger, doing his usual thing, sticking his finger in it, and then licking the finger. And you're just like, why? So yeah, if you ever want to know where that, I mean, we've had episodes that have done it before, but yeah, definitely images like that help with the trope. So if you ever wanted to know where that one come from, it's stuff like this. But yeah, it's then you then see that actually maybe Scully is the one destined to protect this boy who really does have stigmata. He has, I think he's a family friend or something, Owen, played by Michael Berryman, and it's so good. The only thing I knew Michael Berryman from, I didn't really know it at the time that I saw the X-Files, obviously. I just thought he was weird looking. But then you know him, like later on, I saw him in Hills Have Eyes, and I'd completely forgotten that he was in this episode. And then I would watch the episode after watching Hills Have Eyes, and I'm like, oh! So kind of like Tony Todd, it's interesting to see like a horror character then used in this good role, a sympathetic role. And Owen is a sympathetic character. He's not the bad guy. He's actually helping the good people out. There is one thing that bugs me about this episode. This is to do with another deleted scene. Well, it's not deleted scene. It's an altered scene. So in the original version, where Scully and Mulder go to visit Kevin's dad at the mental institution, he says, you must go full circle to find the truth. Now, in the original version of the scene, he actually says it, I think, in Aramaic or Latin or something. And Scully automatically understands it. And Mulder she's like, what do you mean, go full circle to find the truth? And Mulder turns around and is like, what? Now, that makes sense when, the idea is that, as a believer, she will understand because she is the one who is meant to hear that message. So it makes sense that, the dad would say it in an unknown language, and she would understand, and Mulder would be like, what are you talking about? But when in the alternate version that actually aired, he says it in English. And she's like, what do you mean go full circle to find the truth? And Mulder's like, what? And you're like, no, it doesn't make sense, because surely Mulder would be questioning the guy, not Scully. So yeah, that just bugs me. I don't like that they changed it. I don't know why they changed it. I feel it made sense in the original version to have him say it in the foreign language, and for her to understand, because especially if you're playing on that belief, you know, that or that guidance that she is meant to be the one, you know, to protect Kevin. You know, only the one who's meant to protect Kevin should be the one that can understand what the clue is, kind of thing. So, and I do think it's a bit of a leap for her to jump towards the recycling thing, but whatever, wasn't that handy? But yeah, otherwise, I think it's a really good episode. There's something very, you know, Kalashari-ish in that you have the separation, the projection of one Kevin being one place and Kevin being somewhere else. I feel bad for the mum though. She got screwed over big time. But yeah, I think it's nice to see Scully. You know, she questions her faith, but then she's like, at the end, she's talking at confessional, and she says, you know, God is speaking and people aren't listening and stuff like that. And I think that's a really beautiful, you know, it just says a lot about her character and stuff like that. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed this episode. It's not my normal kind of episode. I don't like, you know, it's kind of fun in a way when Mulder pouts about, you don't run my bath. But at the same time, yeah, I just don't like Mulder in this episode at all. I don't like him in these episodes usually, full stop. But yeah, I found this entertaining. And actually, I always enjoy it. I don't know if it's just seeing Scully in that motherly, again, I guess, you know, all these years later, maybe I just like it now, you know, as Scully as this motherly figure or something. But yeah, I actually enjoy it, and it could be a lot worse. So I'm actually going to put it in A. Yeah, I'm going to put it in A. I think it's one of those ones, again, don't normally think about, but is entertaining. But nowhere near as entertaining as War of the Coprophages, another Darin Morgan script. Second of, technically four. I mean, we'll get to that in a minute. But yeah, of the main three, there's no ifs. I mean, you're gonna know. So War of Coprophages is just hilarious. Now, this is not my normal kind of episode because I hate bugs, and this episode is really creepy with the use of the coprophages. I mean, technically, yes. With the cockroaches. I love the backstory that Kim Manners, who directed this episode. There's a scene where, now we got to talk about Bill Dow, who was Chuck Burks in the Kalashari, returns as a completely different character again. Apparently they just hadn't decided that they wanted to bring Chuck Burks back. I guess that was something that maybe came up on the forums in the end. They're like, wait, actually people like him as Chuck Burks. But yeah, Bill Dow is back as a different character again. Which actually means that not only then does he, in the course of the series, the complete series, including Revival, he plays, is it 4 different characters? You've got, you know, the guy in Jersey Devil, you've got Chuck Burks, you've got this guy, and then you've got the guy in Lost Art of Forehead Sweat in season 11. Not only does he play like 4 characters, which is already more than some other, when you get the guest stars, the recurring thing seems to be 3 appearances for the ones that are really in it a lot, kind of thing. So Bill Dow not only gets that 4th character credit, but like I said, he plays it after Chuck Burks has already been established, and I assume they just thought he was gonna. But also, Bill Dow is in almost every season. And it's just so weird to think about because, I mean, so he was in season 1 as Jersey Devil. He was in season 2 as he wasn't the Jersey Devil, but he was the guy who died in the 1940s in Jersey Devil at the beginning. He's then in season 2 as Chuck Burks. He's then in this season as this guy in War of Coprophages. He's in season 4 back as Chuck Burks. I don't think he's in season 5. Is he in season 5? I can't think off the top of my head. No, I don't think he is. He's then in Biogenesis in season 6. And I think technically season 7, I think he's in 6 Extinction, or one of them anyway. He's then in season 8, again as Chuck Burks, in Badler. And I think season 9 he's not in. So I could be wrong on that. I don't think he's in season 9. I think season 8 is his last. So he's not in season 5, he's not in season 9, and he's not in season 10. But otherwise, he's like in every season, at least for one episode. So I think that was a random tangent, but I just wanted that as a consideration because he's not even the same character all the time. So I just think that's an interesting, guest supporting character kind of role. But anyway, let's get back to actually talking about the episode, shall we? Sorry. So in this scene where Bill Dow's character goes to the toilet, and they have a scene, they have a bit where he's on the toilet and they needed these cockroaches to appear out of this toilet system behind Bill Dow. And apparently they did take after take, and the cockroaches just would not leave the system when they needed to. They were just like, you would get like one come out or something like that. Apparently, Kim Manners, the best director on this show ever, definitely missed. He apparently stuck his head in the box. I was like, right, when you hear the first action, that's the actors. When you hear the second action, that's you. And apparently the story goes is then the cockroaches came out on cue of the box, and everybody was just like, Kim Manners directs cockroaches better than he does actors. I was just like, that was brilliant. So I love that behind the scenes story. But yeah, so this is a fun story where it turns out that this town that produces manure is attracting these cockroaches, and then just the power of suggestion, these deaths start to happen, and due to paranoia building, again, it's that paranoia, due to paranoia building, everybody then blames the cockroaches. But it's not. It's just a natural reaction, and of course people having panic attacks and dying from seeing the cockroaches and stuff like that. And it just escalates out of control. And in the midst of this, you've got Mulder and Scully with the best phone conversations ever. So flirty, so hilarious. You've got Mulder constantly phoning up. You have this nice scene at the beginning where Scully is like a boss cleaning out her gun, and Mulder, totally turned on by her explanations of stuff, is like, what are you wearing? And she doesn't just go sexual harassment much, she just laughs, and it's so sweet. And then you got this excellent, the cop turns up and asks Mulder what he's doing and stuff, because it turns out Mulder's not able to stay in his apartment at the moment because of fumigation or whatever, which is ironic, especially considering there's a cockroach at the end. Just like, wow, that fumigation didn't work out too good, did it? So yeah, you've got these scenes where Mulder is constantly, his first call is to Scully to go, so yeah, I think those cockroaches are killing people. Can you come down and do an autopsy? And she's like, well, what about this? And she gives a scientific explanation about what could have killed the person. And it turns out that's the right answer. And as I said before, it's nice when the show actually goes, actually, sometimes Scully is actually right. Don't put her down so much. And I think, again, that's something Darin Morgan is very good at doing. So yeah, you see her in her day-to-day casual life, cleaning Queequeg, Well, trying anyway. And living her best life. Breakfast at Tiffany's, pudding by at the computer. Honestly, Scully at home is the most casual thing ever. It's amazing. So we get to see that side, and Mulder constantly phoning her, and she's like, "Well, do you want me to come down?" And he's like, "No, I'm sure you're right." It's like, wow, Mulder actually acknowledged that Scully's right. um, and then we get Bambi, Dr. Barenbaum. So not only do we get jealous Scully thanks to Dr. Bambi, who is this entomologist that Mulder is totally hitting on, hangs up on Scully. Oh, I hate that so much, but it's hilarious at the same time. Mulder, who hangs up, is like, not now, and hangs up, is hilarious, honestly. Just so that he can keep hitting on this Dr. Bambi, who's going around in these hot pants and the most bizarrest and non FDA federal agent outfit. She looks more like Dora the Explorer. He's hitting on her. Scully not only jealous, then they have the best conversation where he's like, "Oh, Bambi is this," and she's like, "Her name is Bambi." And then later on, Scully turns up, and Bambi's like, "Oh, Fox told me to wait outside. Should I come in?" And Scully's like, putting a clip in her gun, her newly cleaned gun. Is like, "Oh, this is no place for an entomologist." And I'm like, boom! Excellent. It was so perfect. It's so well acted, and it's so well written. In a way that I think only Darin Morgan could do. There is just such good character observation here. I'm not a big fan of the ending where Mulder is just like, Scully, who has been there for him all episode, is just like, "Scully, you stink," just because the hot entomologist went off with the scientist. It's like, wow, somebody's got blue balls. The other fascinating thing from behind the scenes about this episode is, so there's a bit where Scully, who is not having anything of this Dr. Bambi, finally decides to go meet up with Mulder. And she stops off at this convenience store to find a map. And she enters the store, and this car behind her crashes into the car in front. Now, apparently, it was supposed to be that this car would just pull up like suddenly and stop. But apparently it didn't brake soon enough, and the car just crashed straight into the car in front. Well, Gillian turns, and you can see she's like, "What the hell?" But she actually then just continues and carries on with the script, and everybody, after she's seen that they're alive, she actually just continues. And it's just perfect. I'm so glad that they didn't have to redo that, because I think it works so perfectly as it is, especially when you're building up this tension that's going on with the town going berserk because of these cockroaches that are going to pluck out their eyes and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's an excellent, and the fact that Gillian continued with the scene and stuff like that, I think it's really well done, and they didn't have to cut. She carries on. There's no cut there, so yeah, I just think it's really well done, and excellent directed by Manners. Well written by Darin Morgan. Excellent acting all round. Entertaining as all hell. So funny. Always fun to see jealous Scully. I easily S rank. There was no question about that.